Because where's the wetlands? Is that there? Where's the wetlands that they're talking about?
Must be.
Ready when you
See,
are.
I think we're ready.
Well, it is 7 o'clock. We are going to begin the March 25th meeting of the Whitley County Board of Zoning Appeals. To let you know, we will call the meeting to order first and have roll call. Brent, roll call, please.
Jack Green. Here. Kelly Sheese.
Here.
Danny Wilkinson.
Here.
Joe Wolf.
Here.
Doug Wright.
Here. We have the meeting from January and February in front of us. Those two meetings. Give you a while to look over them. If there's no questions or that, we'll entertain a motion to approve either one at a time or both together.
I move we approve both February 27th and January 28th meeting minutes.
We have a motion by Danny, a second by Jack to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, passes 5-0. So, all right, next item of business is the oath to witnesses. If you are here as a petitioner to speak for or against or have questions, you need to take an oath. Our council will now administer the oaths. You need to stand up and raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear or affirm that any statements you make before the board tonight will be the truth? If so, state I do. I do. You can be seated. Sorry. Okay.
I don't see old business, so we'll move on to new business. First item on the agenda is 25W Variance 5, Johnson Family Living Trust. And before I go any farther, the way we'll run the meeting is we will read your petition. The petitioner will then come to the podium or representative for the petitioner and tell us what you want to do. And then we will open the public hearing for anybody who wants to speak for or against or has questions. So, all right. 25W Variance 5, Johnson Family Trust. The petitioner and members of trust owners of subject property is requesting a development standards variance of the required side and front setbacks for construction of a new home on the property located at 6480 East McGuire Road in Section 10 of Smith Township, and comprised of Lot 17 of the Latricia McGuire's second addition to the Blue Lake, recorded in 1938. Property is currently improved with a residence that would be removed. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going to the slides here for everyone. As you said, this is at 6480 East McGuire Road, zoned LR Lake Residential. Just over 1/10 of an acre total size. What is being proposed is to remove the current residence and to build a 70 by 40 foot home on roughly the same site. Not exactly the same footprint, and that's why we have the variance request. You can see there in the table, the lakeside front setback is proposed to be 20.1 feet. Code requires 35 feet, resulting in a variance of 14.9. Now note that they do own the property between the platted lot and the lake shore. Because of policy and precedent, we don't measure the setback to the lake shore, even though they own the lake shore, we measure to that lot line. And that's what is resulting in the 20.1 foot setback here. If you measure to the lake shore, it would be larger than that. The other variance component is the side setback on the west side Currently, the existing home is at 3.9 feet, which you'll see on the plot plan in a second. What is being proposed is to have a 3-foot setback with the new home. Code requires 5 feet, which is being met on the east side, but is being requested to be varied on the west side. Going to reference materials, highlighted in blue is the subject lot. You can see in the vicinity, you do have other homes that have somewhat similar setbacks along the lakeside throughout, and a handful that do have side setbacks that are also 5 feet, which is code, and possibly less, which may be similar. Zooming in on this, I did include the floodplain layer here, so you can see one of the constraints that is being worked around is that floodplain aspect of the lot. So highlighted in blue is the proposed footprint, and then the existing home is in the black line, but you can see the overall layout of the lot. They are squaring up the proposed footprint with the lot lines, so they actually run parallel as opposed to the existing home, which is slightly askew of the lot lines. This is the lot line to which the front setback is being measured, this distance right here, and then they do own this portion down to the lakeshore as well. Again, because of precedent and policy, this part is not included with the overall, unless it were officially replatted to one overall piece. Closer view, I highlighted in red the existing footprint. The blue again is the proposed structure. This setback right here from the red is 3.9 feet, from the blue is 3 feet. So this distance right here is the one being varied for the side setback. Do note too that there is an existing privacy fence approximately along the property line on this side as well. And again, the side is compliant both currently and as proposed at least 5 feet. So going into the review criteria, I won't go into a lot of detail. Do have some concern about the potential impact to public safety whenever you reduce setbacks along property lines to less than 5 feet. That does trigger the need for additional fire rating from the building code, which is fine. The building code addresses that public safety question, but again, another way of handling it is to maintain that 5-foot setback. So that could be a trade-off. We've done it both ways before, but again, it's definitely a point to consider. In terms of public health, generally this would still maintain light and air around the property. Again, you do have that privacy fence there that does contribute to the overall situation as it is. Morals wouldn't be affected, and general welfare, of course, look for practical difficulties specific to the site. In terms of use and value, I don't feel that this would have substantial impacts to the use and value of the area. We do have similar encroachments throughout, particularly the lakeside. It would be in line with other homes, the existing home, other homes in the area, so it would be virtually indistinguishable, and the side setback would be relatively non-substantial in that criteria. And then finally, strict application. Staff feels that there definitely are practical difficulties in terms of applying the code to the lakeside version, lakeside variance. Because of that policy, they do own the lakeshore. If they were able to include that, that would avoid the variance. When you look at the side setback, a little bit harder to identify specific practical difficulty because you're building new. You could comply. It's a matter of 2 feet. Here you do have some other options. Again, they are trying to avoid the floodplain, so that does constrain that side a little bit. So you might identify that as practical difficulty, but again, in terms of that one particular setback, I'm a little shaky on identifying a difficulty to suggest to you. So with that, any questions for me?
So Nathan, on that that side setback where the 3 foot is proposed, I know we've talked about safety issues. 5 feet would be more accessible for emergency personnel, or is that 3 feet sufficient?
There's a fence there.
That's up to you guys to determine on a site-by-site basis. Because of the fence being there, fences can get knocked down. 3 feet is somewhat sufficient. You do have 5 feet on the east side. Is it ideal? No. I mean, ideal would be having 20 feet or more. I mean, depending on who you ask, but code says 5 feet. So I'm kind of giving you a runaround answer. Yeah, glad you realized that. But it's not a specific thing. So
I guess that brings me to my next question. I might be jumping the gun on this, but I mean, I know we have 2 lake variances tonight. They're the first 2 of the year, but I know the comprehensive plan says to take action to address lake-specific issues and a detailed plan and update regulations of the zoning ordinance to minimize the number of variances for lake properties. Has anything been done to address that section of it? Because I know we have talked before about the number of variances and the burden and safety issues.
Mm-hmm. So that item of the comp plan, the first point of it is to recommend a lake-specific plan, so a detailed comp plan for the lakes, and that hasn't been started yet. Okay. The other component of it would be to adjust the zoning code to look at the variances that we have frequently, and that too has not really been pushed by the Plan Commission, and I don't see them taking action on that. I mean, Plan Commission members can correct me if you feel differently, but I think the Plan Commission wants to take this year to kind of not address code issues unless they're like emergent.
So unless like we have a fire issue and multiple homes burn that are packed tight in there together,
something like that.
So many variances.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will give you where this a case though. Danny, you probably remember this. You were on the board then. 25 years ago or so, we were running hundreds of variances, largely because of lake variances. And the code was changed to 5 feet.
From 10 to 5, right?
Yep, from 10 to 5 in what, 2003, 2005, something like that. And so that's what we would look at again. That is a massive number of variances. We were looking at triple digits. Here, each year, we're looking at maybe a dozen or so.
Okay.
So difference in scale, not difference in importance. I mean, it's definitely valid to review. So I appreciate you bringing that up, but I can say it's probably going to be backburnered for a little while.
I mean, I know nobody reads the comprehensive plan for fun, but I mean, it's there for a purpose.
Says you. But no, I truly do appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay.
It's a good reminder for everybody.
Okay. Safety is a concern.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you, staff. Thank you, Kelly. Are there any other questions, board, of staff? If not, we'll have the petitioner come to the podium, and that, when you do come to the podium tonight with your petitioner or questions for or against, and that, please state your name and address first, please. Thank you. Petitioner?
How I state my name and address?
Yes.
Okay. Bill Johnson, and we live at 6550 East McGuire Road, Cherubusco, Indiana, at Blue Lake. What else?
Go ahead. Tell us what you want to do.
Oh, yeah. First of all, we were going to add on to the house on the right side as we're looking at it, And then, and we got all approved for that. Everything got approved. But then when the builder came out and looked at it and everything, he said we could add on, but it would be easier rather than try to add on and tie all the new in with the old. He said, I hate to say it, but you'd be better off just tearing it down and starting brand new. So we had all the variances and everything, so we could do that. And we didn't know it. Then when we found out that we were going to, with talking with Brent, that when we were advised to build new, that we had to come back and start over. So, and then what we're doing, the blue house, or the blue outline would be the new house. The red is the existing old, where there's that driveway from the road is real short. Can't really even get a truck in there. So first of all, we just wanted to shift towards the lake, which we felt we'd probably be able to do that with the variances approved last time. And then we just wanted to, how the house is cockeyed, we wanted to square it up. And you can see how we're square on each sides now. And then so we just went from there and started coming up with house plans that would fit into that. So that's where we're at.
All right. Board, any questions of the petitioner? No. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. You may have a seat.
Okay.
So, we'll open up the floor for anybody to speak for or against, or who has questions. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this, and we will direct it back to the board. Board, what is your choosing on this?
I'd like to make a favorable motion to approve 25W variance 5.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Jack, seconded by Kelly to grant the variance for 25W variance 5. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, it passes unanimously. Thank you. So, and you may go if you wish to. So. All right. Next item on the agenda is variance 25W6, Caitilin and Thomas Landrigan. The petitioner, prospective buyer of the subject property, is requesting a development standards variance of a reduced minimum lot frontage for a potential subdivision plat on the property located at 4673 South, 700 East, in Section 36 of Union Township. The property is unimproved. About 14 acres is wooded, potentially wooded wetland, with the remaining being tilled. There is a small area of floodplain and floodway associated with an open ditch on the northern boundary of the property. So, staff, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, going to the summary. This is on South 700 East, zoned AG agricultural. Overall, just over 20 acres. It was split in 2023 from an overall parent tract that includes the property to the south that has an old house on it. Being over 20 acres, this was able to be split without platting. It is now for sale, and the prospective purchaser, the applicant, is one, to split the property into two pieces. In the staff report, I noted it would be about 10 and 10. That may or may not be the case. It could be some other combination. But it would be split into two building sites. Because of that, it would wind up needing to be platted. And so that would be the next step if this goes forward. The situation is that when it was split in 2023, it was split with the minimum frontage of only 50 feet, which is fine for one parcel. That's all we require is 50 feet of frontage. But the proposal to split it into two building sites means that you have to have 2 times 50 feet, so 100 feet. They don't have that, they only have 50, so they're proposing to split the 50 that they do have into 25 and 25. So 25 for each one of the new building sites, and that is the nature of the variance being requested. Going to reference materials here, outlined in blue. This also has floodplain on as well, so you can see that along the north line. But outlined in blue is the subject property, as mentioned. Most of the property is wooded. There are some potential wetlands in there. There is a little floodplain along the creek. You do have some tillable acreage there on the far south side. So you have quite a few different options as they, if they do pursue this, to lay out lots to work with the available land that's in the woods on the flatter tilled acreage and so on. A little closer view here, and again, when this was split, actually let me go back. The parent tract included, prior to 2023, included this and this together. This was split off, leaving this 50-foot strip here. And so that is the part that's being requested tonight, to go from 50 feet to 25 and 25. Here's the overall survey. We didn't require a specific plot plan because, again, we know what the measurement is of that 50 feet. So splitting it anyway would not be code compliant. Some factors to give some thought beyond the review criteria. Frontage is required, lot frontages are required. The natural thought is that's where you're going to put your driveway, and that is one reason that we require public road frontage. It's a very important reason, but it's not the only reason. We also require public road frontage in order to serve as a check on the overall density of development. If you allow for parcels, lots, building sites to be created that don't have frontage, you can pack a lot more in if everybody just shares one easement, for example. And that's what we did prior to, again, roughly the same time as we were doing the lake code changes. We also did a code change to require public road frontage. And that was one big reason. Prior to that, we had issues with ingress egress easements. We had issues with lots that didn't have frontage that wound up getting isolated, and then issues with neighbors not agreeing with each other, denying access, and so on. So those are two big reasons. There's some other reasons, but those are two big reasons that we require 50 feet of frontage. One, I guess the third reason that somewhat comes into play, at 50 feet of frontage, if for some reason you had a large property, let's say it's 50 acres with 50 feet of frontage, 50 feet of frontage is coincidentally and intentionally the minimum right-of-way width for a county road. So if you wanted to develop a hypothetical 50-foot or 50-acre parcel as a major subdivision, you can use that frontage for a public road and then further develop that subdivision. If you go less than that, you lose that opportunity for a road. So that is another reason for that 50-foot of frontage. In this particular case, it's not likely that this would be further subdivided because of the wetland issues, the woods, and not likely to go farther east because of other development constraints farther east. So I don't think the idea of preserving 50 feet for a public road is necessarily applicable here. the other two items might be things for you to consider. Going through the review criteria, again, as long as there is some adequate access, and whether 25 feet per lot is adequate is going to be something for you to consider, but as long as there's adequate access, staff feels that public health and safety would be protected. It's a matter of every site is different, and in some cases 25 feet may not be adequate. Some cases 12 feet might be adequate. So again, draw that to your attention. In terms of use and value, generally staff doesn't feel that this would be either substantially or have adverse impact to the surrounding area. This is already a 20-acre building site the way it is. Adding a second site to it really wouldn't have that large of an impact, and that's effectively what this would permit is that second site. Strict application of the ordinance resulting in practical difficulties. Whether it's self-imposed or not, really would go back to the nature of how it came about. Again, why I highlighted the fact that this was split in 2023. This code's been in place for more than 20 years. So the rules were known, but whether it was a self-imposition or not, don't really know for sure. Don't know the dynamics of how this came about. But in some ways, yes, it does have practical difficulties because of the way the code works and because of the other site-specific constraints dealing with woods, wetlands, and so on that kind of eliminate some of the other reasons that we have frontage as a requirement. So there's a couple different factors you might attach to this as practical difficulties. So any questions for me?
I do have a question, Nathan. Can you tell me the footage from the road back to where the 50-foot widens out to the rest of the property?
I will look at that and get back to you. Actually, no, I can look at that right now. It's clearer than I thought. 439.2 feet.
So I know the request is for the reduced minimum lot frontage, but the verbiage is a potential subdivision plat. And I could certainly be wrong on this. I thought an AG, starting a few years ago, it had to be 3 or more houses for a subdivision plat. It couldn't be split just in 2 as a subdivision plat. Help me out here.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So what you're thinking of is if you have 3 platted lots or more, it requires a rezoning.
Okay.
Under AG, you're still allowed to have 2 platted lots without the rezoning. And that's what the Plan Commission sees practically every meeting is the 1 and 2 lot plats.
Okay.
Going to that third is when you trigger it. So this would be the most they could do without rezoning is the 2 that are proposed.
Okay, and then back to the minimum lot frontage of 25 and 25. And you know, you talk about practical difficulties, and each person gets their own 25-foot entryway. But if you're building homes back in there, construction vehicles, other things going in, is 25 feet adequate? And
that is the question that I posed to you. One solution, and I'll leave this up to you, whether you feel that this is something you want to attach to a motion tonight, or whether you let the Plan Commission deal with it as part of platting. But one solution might be to say, okay, each lot has 25 feet of frontage as part of their property, but there's still a reciprocal ingress-egress easement across both. So you still are protected, even if you err onto that neighboring 25 feet, it's still okay because you're protected by that easement. So
do you still set yourself up for a potential land use conflict, though?
It would help diffuse that if you had an ingress-egress easement as part of that. Again, reciprocal both directions.
Where you would have a basically a shared driveway that would be,
Either shared driveway or separate driveways, but again, the right to use the adjacent 25 feet if you had to. Construction vehicles are a great example. Or if you had a large delivery coming back, that might need to swing wide or
a
something.
piece of fire apparatus such as Union Township has.
Yeah, there's a couple different scenarios there. So,
And then are there any other reduced minimum lot frontages like this? Are there other examples that you can think of?
there's one over by 450 East. 205 to 450. And then up there's, I believe, 3 homes back, and there was a 25-foot, at the time, 25-foot ingress egress that goes back. So one person owns it, and there's ingress egress for the other 2. That's a 25-foot frontage.
prior to 2003, there's quite a few examples. Since 2003, the board has tried to avoid varying it as much as possible. I've only dealt with, I think, 3 frontage cases.
And what is the reason to avoid varying it?
The reasons that I gave you.
Okay.
So, yeah. Not to say it couldn't be varied, but the board has tried to avoid it.
Avoid it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff, board? Seeing none, petitioner or representative, would you please come to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us about your project.
Hello, Tom Landrigan, 12634 Chestnut Passway, Fort Wayne, Indiana, 46814. So kind of as was laid out here, our interest in the property is really just for residential use. So we're looking to build a home site for our family. 20 acres is a very big site, so we just really want the ability to split one time. We have some family who may be interested in the other split, and so we're not sure yet exactly what that will be, but just want to divide the one time. And our vision for the driveway would be a shared driveway for that first 500 or so feet, whether that's ideally on one of the 25-foot strips, and then splitting off from there. So I think from the road, you wouldn't even probably be able to tell that there's even 2 properties back there. But then in the future, if there ever were an issue and the access for the other side was needed, there would still be that ability to put in a separate drive there.
Board, any questions of the petitioner?
Do you own the property now?
No, we have a pending purchase agreement.
Who maintains the property currently? Who has maintained and who maintains the property now?
Yes, the current owner is here. The seller.
So you yourself haven't done anything to this property?
No. Again, we're just the pending purchaser, so we don't own it yet, so I haven't done anything with it ourselves.
Okay.
My name's Randy Webster. I live at 104 South Line Street in South Willie, Indiana. My parents, I lived on the property most of my life. My parents have both passed away in the last 2 and 3 years. And so my sister and I split the property. The agreement was originally that we were supposed to split the field right down to the middle. And so I would have had 75 feet right away. But she met the surveyors out there behind my back and told them to push it over to the 50 feet. And so that's where we ended up. She was the executor of the will.
Who owns the no trespassing sign that's out there?
I do.
And who are you?
I am the one that now owns the other property, he's speaking of my mother, and own next door to it. I own the old house, the rest of the acreage, all of that on the side.
So you're the sister that...
She's my niece.
The daughter.
My mother. Oh, so we're looking at that south is the lot that I own also. And I was here in February and got the okay to build a second property on that property that I own, you guys passed.
So you own the personal property that's on the no trespassing sign parcel there?
She did have an RV backed up to right to my property line. And ever since the property's been split, it's been nothing but a nightmare out there. She had all kinds of signs posted. She's piled trash at the end of the 50-foot lane. Already drove away a couple of prospective buyers. She told the police right in front of me that they were all armed to make us feel threatened. And, you know, my point, like I intended to keep the property, but because of the harassment out there, I put it up for sale and I'm ready to move on. Maybe if someone else owns the property, then the madness will end out there. Her RV she had backed up right almost on the property line. She had a camera on it with an alarm, so every time I went in or out of my property, an alarm was going off just to enter my own property.
All I'm gonna say is that the cops that
You will have a chance to speak here in a moment. Please, we're getting too many people speaking at one time. Here.
Nathan, if this variance is approved, it would just be approved to the prospective buyer, correct? That variance wouldn't go into place if that purchase fell through.
No, normally in most cases, variances run with the land, because what you're doing is you're saying that the land has some particular reason, which is practical difficulties particular to the property. So that's why it's being varied. You can condition it to be conditioned upon the particular applicant for whatever reason, but without that condition, it runs with the land.
And on that point, for what it's worth, there's no other contingencies on the purchase. So it's a cash purchase, cash is available. So nothing pending otherwise that would stop the purchase from going through.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
Can I ask one more question? I know you said you're looking at making it a shared driveway. So why even go for the split variance? Why not just leave it at 50 feet? And why can't we or the planning commission put in an easement agreement that
was actually our original idea, but understanding is that is a disfavored approach where the back property then would be dependent on the easement from the front property, and if in future people don't play well together, then you're stuck relying on that easement. Whereas in this case, you could have a shared driveway, and if 50 years from now neighbors don't get along, a new driveway could go in on the other 25 feet.
Yeah. So,
we would be open to either.
that's not, I'm just trying to.
And we would be open to either as well. Again, going back on precedence, it was our recommendation to the applicant to do at least some minimum frontage for each lot. But if you'd rather have one lot have all the frontage for whatever reason, it still requires the same variance. And there's some pros and cons, as you just mentioned, pros and cons to doing either approach.
I was just trying to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions, board? Thank you. You
Thank
have
you.
a seat, sir. All right. Anybody else to speak for or against, or who has questions on this variance may come to the podium, state your name and address, and what your question or statement is.
My name is Michelle Linsky. I own that property, but my address that I live at is 7519 Tattersall Circle, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm not going to go into all the family drama. That isn't what's needed. What I will say is my concern and what I would like to ask is that there be a shared driveway type situation agreement instead of the split 25-25. The reason why I say this is because right now at that 50, there's been logging that has been going on. The semi trucks can't even pull out of there at the 50 without coming onto side properties and things like that. My personal, I'm ready for this to be sold. I'm ready to move on. I don't care. My problem is splitting that 50 to 25. I'm afraid of crossing into other properties, all of that type of stuff, especially during constructions, the timing, and all of that. So that is my concern, and I would like I said, an easement, shared driveway type thing. One of my questions was, which the buyer already addressed, I was given the okay to have 2 buildings on my parcel next door. That was the other question I was going to ask, is if they were building with family, if they could have the same as I have, to have 2 parcels, particularly if it would work for them on one parcel, like I've got approval. My only thing is like I said, is how do we take this 50 feet and make sure that we're not getting on either of the properties on the other side during all of the constructions and things like that, because with all the logging going on and stuff, there has been crossover already, and we've already got 50 feet on front. That's why I have no trespassing signs. That's why I have everything that I do up. That's why it is the way that it is on my side of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come to the podium, state your name and address, please.
Hello, folks. Tina Hauser, the LT Group here in town, 114 West Van Buren Street. I live at 7730 Buttermore Court in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm a real estate agent. I'm the listing agent on this. I know most of you. I just wanted to come up and remind you how big 25 feet is. I have been a part of this whole transaction from beginning to end. I also don't want to bring up all of the drama that has happened, but 25 feet is quite big enough to put a semi down and backwards and all that fun stuff. So I just wanted to remind you, I don't think anybody here has a tape measure, but if you did, it's about the size of this room. So if you can't drive down the side of this room, there's a problem even with a semi. Just wanted to bring that to your attention, and hope that helps.
Is there anybody else? Seeing nobody, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. I do have one thing to say. You know, this, in my experience for working for the county highway and that, and knowing quite a few of the people that live out there that have larger vehicles, ag equipment and that, usually you want to build your driveway twice as big as you're going to need it. So, and that's with a safety concern. I spent 32 years on the Richland Township Fire Department. Fire trucks are not getting any smaller, they're only getting bigger. You know, I know one man's house that burnt in Kosciuszko County because it was over 600 feet off the roadway, and he had a bridge down his driveway that the trucks could not cross. So we need to take all these things into, my biggest thing is it's practicality over aesthetics. That's what I preach at work. Sometimes it falls on deaf ears, sometimes it doesn't. But that's what we all need to remember. So that's my comment. Board?
I do think it would be helpful. I understand the request for the split to Nathan. I think you had mentioned whether, I don't know if it's us or planning commission puts in there kind of a shared agreement. I'm just trying to minimize potential in the future. If this variance goes with the property and landowners change, if something's in place.
Yeah, you could attach just a broad condition stating that there, if you go with 25-25, that there shall be some sort of ingress-egress easement, or maybe not even that specific, just easements in place to address
Shared use.
shared use. Thank you. Yes. And two, if you want to entertain the idea of doing a 50-foot, 100% variance of one of the lots, you are able to do that. Again, it was staff's recommendation to the applicant to do the 25-25, but if you feel it's more appropriate to do 50 and 0, it's still the same variance. So if you want to entertain that, then you can do so.
Board, anything else? Well, we'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve 25W variance 6, special exception request, with the added condition that an easement be put in place to address the shared use of the driveway area.
I'll second that.
A motion has been made by Kelly, seconded by Jack, to approve 25W variance 6 with the condition of a shared ingress egress easement. Is that how you want to?
Just easement
Easement
in place
to address the shared use. Okay. Any other discussion?
Just,
okay.
Just for clarification, you're leaving it at 50 foot, right?
No, it's
You're
the
granting it at
variance
25
is
each?
requesting the 25 and 25.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
All right, we have a motion on that, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 4-1. With all members, 4-4 and 4-1 against. Okay, you may go ahead and leave if you wish. So, okay. Last item in new business is 25W variance 7. Says Michael and Laraina Seigel. The property is currently zoned lake residential. The petitioner, owner of the subject property, is requesting a development standards variance to the required front setback for construction of a new home on the property located at 2382 East Schram Avenue in Section 11 of Thorn Creek Township and comprised of lots 4 and 5 and part of 6 of L.J. Schram's addition recorded in 1921. The property is currently improved with a storage building that enjoys a legal non-conforming rear setback. Staff, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going to this one. This is 2382 East Schram Avenue, zoned LR Lake Residential, about a 1/4 acre. As you said, it's improved with a storage building which has a legal non-conforming rear setback. Was expanded a handful of years ago based upon that legal non-conforming line. What is proposed is to construct a 27 by 65 home on the lakeward side of the storage building. The code is, of course, 35 feet. The proposed setback for the house itself is 13.4 feet. The porch that is proposed is 5 feet, resulting in the 2 variances. Averaging can be applied here. Doing so results in an average setback of 23 feet. That is skewed somewhat because of one house to the west that is set back pretty far, and so that skews that averaging upwards. If you only take the immediately adjacent houses, this actually would be set back somewhat from those immediately adjacent houses. Also note, similar to the first case tonight, this also has an area between the platted lot line and the lakeshore that the petitioner does not own. But again, we measure the setback to the platted lot line, not to the lakeshore. If we did measure it to the lakeshore, we wouldn't be here. It would exceed that 35 feet. Going to the reference materials, so you can see here the various homes in question. Let's see, I believe it's this one, sets back quite a ways. I can't remember exactly which ones, but going to the closer view, you can see how close the adjacent homes are, and as proposed, this would be set back actually a little bit farther than at least two of the four that you can see in that photo, if not three of the four, and kind of in line with the one immediately to the east. Here's the plot plan as proposed. The 35-foot as measured from the lot line lies right here, and you can see how much the home would set out in front, and then the porch is located here. In theory, you could rotate this and put it alongside here. If you did so, you would probably still have some encroachment into the setback, if not actually encroaching farther up here. You would also disrupt the usage of this existing storage building. So while in theory you could create some scenario that might be more compliant, most likely you couldn't avoid variances entirely. So that's an important consideration as you weigh out the practical difficulties of this case. Going to the criteria, staff doesn't feel like there would be any injury to public health, safety, morals, general welfare. What is being laid out is very similar in nature to the other properties. Again, it's because of how we measure that front setback to the lot line is resulting in that practical difficulty. If we were measuring the lake shore, as we do in some cases, it would result in a compliant setback. And use and value, staff doesn't feel would be adversely affected, as the proposal is very similar to other homes in the area, and the visual effect would be very similar across the board. So with that, any questions for me?
Seeing none, thank you, staff. Petitioner or representative of, please come forward, state your name and address, and tell us about your project.
My name's Mike Seigel. I live at 2400 East Schram, which is right next to that property. And we just want to build a new house over there. And all of the properties in our area are pretty much on the line or over the line towards the lake. We're wanting to be, it's about 14 foot back off of the line for the house, and then there is a 9-foot porch. So we're requesting 5-foot setback.
All right, board, any questions of the petitioner? Seeing none, thank you. So, and we'll open public hearing, but seeing nobody really here.
Everybody left, Mike.
So,
Nobody wanted to hear you.
I know. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing now and give it back to the board for what they wish to do.
I'll make a motion to approve 25W variance 7.
I'll second.
Doug's made a motion. Kelly has seconded to grant 25W variance 7. If there's no more discussion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, sir.
I'll get with you tomorrow. Okay. All right, thanks, Mike.
Okay, that is the last item on new business. Is there any other business before the board?
I do have a reminder that the 5th Monday training session is coming up next week on Monday at 6 o'clock. It'll be located here. The topic is the continuation of Ask Us Anything, which we did last January, so we'll pick up some more questions from that. There have been a handful of things that have come up. Brent and I were just talking about one Danny had brought up earlier that will add to the list of topics.
Do you want
well.
the questions ahead of time?
What's that?
Do you want the questions ahead of time? So you can screen them?
Yeah, go ahead and send us questions. No,
Mr. President.
we have the way we did it was we have a bundle, I think, of like 4 dozen different questions or maybe more. Frequently asked questions, random topics, things that don't really warrant an entire session in themselves. And so it's basically, I think we're going to handle it very similar to what we did. You just pick which ones you want some answers for, and we'll shoot you some answers. And so if you have more to add to the list, email me the list, and we will add them, assuming that I can get the answers together in a week, but I probably can. So
It's pretty easy. It's just one.
Let me know, and we'll add it to the
They
mix.
might not get a list, though.
We're adding Danny's. Danny had a question about
Data centers and our current ordinance
That's a good one.
is applied.
Yeah, Marshall County or Kosciuszko County.
That's good.
Yeah, Kosciuszko is looking at that right now. So that's a very
500 acres is already being requested.
Yep.
Mine's more along the lines of conflict of interest or ethical.
Well, that actually will be covered. I believe our training session in June. I'm going to actually just dive into ethics for everybody again. So
Well, I'll send it to you now.
yeah, you can send it to me, and I'll figure out whether it's best to hold off on that or not. But
Is that 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock here.
Are you okay waiting till then for that answer, Danny? Or do you want some?
I don't even need an answer. Yeah, I'm great.
Okay.
The short answer, since we brought it up, is we currently would treat it as light manufacturing.
As what?
Light manufacturing. It would need to be zoned industrial.
That's intense.
Same thing as Kosciuszko's going to do if the commissioners approve it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can talk about
Nothing specific in the ordinance that addresses it.
It's not called out specifically, but
Okay,
it is
that's
definitely equivalent.
It's one of those things that have come around in the last 20 years that.
And that
With
makes the
technology.
transition to spot zoning, which I hate, but like that, whether it's a data center or rezoning village commercial and ag for an event center, there's a lot of different, whether it's small or big. I mean, I know a data center's a lot bigger.
Well, I mean, another option would be, okay, you can avoid the spot zoning by making a special exception allowable in ag. And then it would come to you guys. Do you guys want to see it? Or would you rather the plan commission deal with it and commissioners? These are quite...
Which comes back to ethics, so, I'm sorry.
That's your ethical question. I think we have other things, bigger fish there. But yeah, we still have quite a few different questions that we didn't get to last year, and some more applicable to cities, some more applicable to county, just in the towns. So.
No, my question would be, I don't know if we're still being recorded again. I'm fine.
We are,
if it's
yeah.
on. No, because my question is it a conflict of interest or ethically acceptable if you were in an elected or appointed position to write or speak in favor of a project that another board will be voting on, but that you will ultimately have the final decision on?
Mm-hmm. I can add that to the list. Brent, you want to write that down?
I'll email it.
Kelly will tell you the question afterwards. Just
I can even give you an example.
I'll give you the answers.
but yeah, it's very, not going to give you the full answer because I'm not going to take thunder away from Monday night. But it varies upon elected officials have certain discretions. Appointed officials have some, members of the public. It does vary depending a little bit on who you are. From a legal standpoint, but from an ethical standpoint, it's a bigger question. So what you can get away with, quote unquote, legally versus what you should be thinking of, there are differences. So that would be a good one for everybody to hear come Monday night.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's out of line, if that's what you were thinking. I think that's perfectly fine.
I won't give the example then. I'll just let you.
There's more than one. And not just in the county. So,
If there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned.